Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Spin Cycle Live. I'm your host, Nathan Hale. Today, we are back. It's a new week. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. Boy, do we have a lot to cover today. First off, new camera. I think the show looks great. Just gotta put that out there. But, I know that I look great, but I'm always great. I hope you're also great, too. Tell me how you're doing. Let me know. Hope you're doing good. It's a beautiful Monday here in the Midwest. Today is June 16th, 2025. And boy, we have a lot to cover. Before we get into it, show comes out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Working on getting those reruns figured out. But the regular show comes at 6 p.m. When we do reruns, they'll come out at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on X only. So look out for that. But follow us YouTube, Instagram, Rumble, TikTok. I'm on X. Follow me there. So, since I do have a new camera, I have to remember I have to look up more. So, I was using the webcam off the computer that I'm on, but now I got a nice little camera right above it. I got to look up a little bit more. That's where you're at now. So, let's go ahead and get right into our very first story of the week. It comes from the Hale. I don't know what it is about Hill stories, but I like them. They do a decent job at summarizing events. All right. So all states, territories agree to a $7.4 billion payout by Purdue Pharma for an opioid settlement. So Purdue Pharma, if you don't remember, you should know the name. But Purdue Pharma is the maker of OxyContin. OxyContin is a super addictive drug and was used for pain relieving and a whole bunch of other things. And essentially, Purdue Pharma lied to doctors everywhere and said that this drug was not addictive at all in any nature and that it was perfectly safe for people to use, which it wasn't. And a whole bunch of people got addicted to it, died because of it. It created this whole huge stir of underground drug trading. There's many documentaries out there on it. But this all took place in the late 90s and early 2000s, and today's 2025, and we're just now getting payouts because of it. So you can see how long court system take in some cases. All right. Let's read through the story. So the attorneys general of all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and 4 territories have agreed to sign on to a $7.4 billion statement with Purdue Pharma and the members of the Sackler family who own the company. The settlement seeks to resolve thousands of lawsuits over the opioid crisis. The family members would acknowledge their role in contributing to the epidemic with rampant production and aggressive marketing of opioids for decades. According to the attorneys general, local governments across the country will now be asked to join the settlement contingent on bankruptcy court proceedings. Quote, "There will never be enough justice, accountability, or money to restore the families whose lives have been wrecked or to right the terrible consequences of the Sackler family's craven misconduct. What we announce today is both monumentous and insufficient, the culmination of years of tumultuous negotiations and legal battles all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court," Connecticut Attorney General William Tong said in a statement. If approved, the settlement would be the largest to date, with individuals responsible for contributing to the deadly opioid epidemic. Local, state, Native American, tribal governments, and others have filed thousands of lawsuits seeking to hold manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies responsible. Well, I gotta agree with Attorney General William Tong here that I would hardly say that $7.4 billion is at all sufficient for the suffering that these families had to deal with, for the amount of lies and deception that have gone on from Purdue Pharma. It's a step in the right direction, but this closes a story arc here. I mean, this is kind of the end of the road for the whole OxyContin crisis, and I'm glad there's some resolution to it. This settlement was talked about back in January, I believe, and I remember seeing this story a while ago, and I almost covered it on the show, but I decided to wait simply because there wasn't a finalization to it. But it seems like this deal is going to get finalized. This is kind of going to be the end of all of it for Purdue Pharma. Now I believe they're still around producing drugs, but yeah. I'm happy to see that they're at least being somewhat held accountable. $7.4 billion is nothing to be scoffed at. It's certainly a lot of money, but could it be significantly more? Of course it could. It could always be more money. But I'm glad to see that there is some accountability taking place, and we're going after companies that are doing wrong. So I hope that we see similar things happen down the road to some of the drug companies that pushed the COVID vaccine on Americans, and many, many other prescription medications as well. But probably won't be for another 25 years, considering this happened, I believe, pre 9/11 is when the opioid, or when the OxyContin crisis was. It might have been right around then. So between 20 and 25 years ago, I would say. So we'll see that for quite a while. But with that, let's go and move on to our next story. So the Trump administration weighs adding 36 countries to travel ban, memo says. Now, we just recently covered, I think last week, that the Trump administration was cutting off travel from, seems like 18 different countries, and the majority of them, I believe, are all African or Middle Eastern countries, maybe one or two Asian. But it seems that they are cutting off an additional 36 that number. So we'll get to the list in just a second. I'll read through the story first and we'll discuss. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is considering significantly expanding its travel ban by potentially banning citizens of 36 additional countries from entering the United States, according to an internal State Department seen by Reuters. Earlier in June, the Republican president signed a proclamation that banned the entry of citizens from 12 countries, saying the move was needed to protect the U.S. against, quote, foreign terrorists and other national security threats. So I said 18, I guess it was 12. The directive was part of an immigration crackdown President Trump launched in 2025 at the start of his second term, which has included the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans suspected of being gang members to El Salvador, as well as efforts to deny enrollments of some foreign students from U.S. universities and deport others. Quote, the department has identified 36 countries of concern that might be recommended for full or partial suspension of entry if they do not meet established benchmarks and requirements within 60 days, the cable sent out over the weekend said. Among the concerns the State Department raised was the lack of contempt or cooperative government by some of the countries mentioned to produce reliable identity documents, the cable said. Another was, quote, questionable security of that country's passports. Some countries, the cable said, were not cooperative in facilitating the removal of its nationals from the U.S. who were ordered to be removed. Some countries were overstaying the U.S. visas their citizens were being granted. Other reasons for concern were the nationals of the country were involved in acts of terrorism in the U.S. or anti-Semitic and anti-American activity. The countries that could face a full or partial ban if they do not address these concerns within the next 60 days are Angola, and Barbuda, Benin, Bhutan. Oh gosh, I'm not going to read through all these. This is far too many. But you can see the list on the screen right from you. The links in the description, you're going to see all of them. But I'm not going to torch you all and try to pronounce each one of these different ridiculous countries' names. Just know that I'm looking at this list. The vast majority of them appear to be African, Middle Eastern, and possibly some Asian. Egypt is on there. Nigeria is on there. Zimbabwe is on there. Uganda, Republic of the Congo, Dominica, Ethiopia. Let's see. Cameroon. Yeah, these are all major countries that hardly would say belong to the United States. That would be a significant expansion of the ban that came earlier in June. So the countries affected in the June ban included Afghanistan, the Congo, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, a couple others. The entry of people from 7 other countries, including Cuba, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, has also been partially restricted. All right. If you want to know more about what these countries are getting up to, go and listen to or read the Fox News article that came out earlier this month. I covered it on the show. Go back a few episodes, you'll find it somewhere in there. But essentially, they walked through each of these countries and talked about the exact reason why they had a ban. Like this article said, many of them had, of the vast majority of their visas were overstayed, right? Or they were up to terrorism in the United States. They had anti-American values. They were up to no good, essentially. Or a lot of these countries that are on the travel ban, the countries are not cooperative with handing over criminal records, right? The whole point of a visa and allowing people to come into our country legally is we have a background on them. We know who these people are, right? We don't want criminals coming to our home. We want good people. And when other countries don't cooperate with that, how can we trust anyone from there, right? How do we know we're not going to have the next terrorist come in the United States? I don't have an issue with any of this. People are going to argue that this is racism by the Trump administration, that, all these countries on here are from Middle Eastern countries or, African countries. So Donald Trump has an issue with black and brown people. That's not the case. That's just not what it is. It is the case, though, that Africa and the Middle East are rifled with political unrest. There are several countries that are being run by literal terrorist groups. Countries being run by terrorists. Not an actual government, by literal terrorist groups. It's insane. People do not belong in the United States. Additionally, you're going to hear people saying that, Donald Trump is Islamophobic. He's Islamophobic. Yeah, honestly, we as Americans should be Islamophobic, frankly, when it comes down to it. I'm not afraid to say it. Islam and the Muslim faith do not coincide with Western values. If you're living in a country that believes that women should be wrapped up in garb to cover their face, that they can't drive cars, right? That gay people deserve to be imprisoned, that is not compatible with Western values. It's just not. It's just not. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry to say it. I'm not at all. I'm also in favor of this. As a gay dude myself, I don't really want my country to be overrun with Muslims like the United Kingdom is right now. That scares me, right? These people do not support the way that I choose to live my life. I fear for my safety when I'm in Muslim communities. I don't want to, not that anything bad would happen to me, but the fact that it could frightens me. That this is a large group of people that all hold these values coming in our country. We have plenty of people in this country right now. It's hard enough taking care of all of them. America should be closed for business as far as I'm concerned. Unless we're bringing the best of the best, right? That's all I gotta say about that. Go move on to our next story. So this is from AP News. So it turns out that Trump administration has taken a stand with getting student loans repaid. So credit scores have declined for millions as U.S. student loan collections restart. Because they were paused for years, remember. They were paused under the Biden administration. Paused. Restart now. Get ready. Buckle up. Millions of Americans are seeing their credit scores suffer now that the U.S. government has resumed referring missed student loan payments for debt collection. After 90 days of non-payment, student loan servicers report delinquent or past due accounts to major credit bureaus, which use the information to recalculate the borrower's score. Falling behind on loan payments, therefore, can affect an individual's credit rating as severely as filing for personal bankruptcy. The Federal Reserve Bank in New York reported that in the first 3 months of 2025, 2.2 million student loan recipients saw their scores drop by 100 points. An additional 1 million had drops of 150 points or more. Declines that steep may mean the difference between a manageable credit card interest rate and an unmanageable one, or approval or rejection of an application to rent an apartment. The U.S. Department of Education paused federal student loan payments in March 2020, offering borrowers relief during the economic chaos of the coronavirus pandemic. Though payments technically resumed in 2023, the Biden administration provided a 1-year grace period that ended in 2024, of October of that year. Last month, the Trump administration restarted the collection process for outstanding student loans with plans to seize wages and tax refunds if the loans continued to be unpaid. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, about 1 in 4 people with student loans account were more than 90 days behind on payments at the end of March. Insanity. All right. I don't know what it is with the libs and handing out free money to people, but they sure seem to love it. All through the Biden administration, it was an uphill battle of them trying to cancel out billions of dollars of student loans for millions of students across the country. It never ended up happening because, as the Supreme Court saw, and sane Americans realized, that's dumb and should not be done. What is a federal student loan in the first place? A federal student loan is a student loan given by the federal government using your tax dollars for people to go to school, right? So I want to go to college. I take out a student loan. I pay the college. I go to school. I graduate. I get a job. I pay it back. End of story. Little bit of interest because, the U.S. is doing me a great solid, giving me thousands of dollars so that I can pursue my dreams as an English student. And all they want from me is to pay it back and a little bit extra, right? But, my generation seems to have an issue with the whole payback part. They're fine with the money part. Not too big on the giving it back part. So I sympathize with individuals who feel taken advantage of, that they're in an enormous amount of debt going to school, that they didn't get the job of their dreams after they graduated. I sympathize with that. I understand where you're coming from because you were fooled by the universities. The universities fooled you into thinking that you needed a journalism degree to go and become a journalist, that you needed an English degree to go become a writer, that you needed a communications degree to go and communicate, something that we all know how to do. I'm communicating with you right now. I've never taken a single communication class, but yet I'm communicating with you right across the screen. You need a business degree to go start a business, right? They fooled us all into believing this was a thing. Go and read Charlie Kirk's book, College is a Scam, because it is. A lot of it is a scam. If you are taking out, in my opinion, more than $20,000 to go to college, I think that's insane, first off. Unless you're getting asterisk, unless you're getting a healthcare degree, right? If you're going to college and you're getting a degree in law or healthcare, one of these careers that has high payoff reward after you graduate, you can afford to take out the loans, right? I know people who are getting their MD degree right now who have taken out $200,000 to $300,000 in student loans. They're going to become neurosurgeons. They're going to get paid $200,000 a year, right? They can afford to pay their loans off with the amount of money they're going to be making. What's the median salary for English majors? $55,000, if that. So you're taking out $200,000 to go to Harvard to get a writing degree. I don't know. The numbers don't line up there. So I sympathize with students who feel that they were duped into taking all of this money and now they didn't get the job they wanted to repay it back. They're not making the income they have. They're going into debt because of it. They're having to file for bankruptcy, all of that. But at the same time, you have to take responsibility for yourself. You signed your name on the loan. You agreed with our government that you would pay them back plus interest. It was all given to you in front of you. This is not some big, now we're asking for repayment. We told you didn't have to repay it before when we gave you the loan, but now we want our money back, right? It wasn't one of that. When you signed it, you agreed to pay it back. And you've been sitting pretty for the past 5 years, since 2020, because student loan repayments have been paused. But now there's a new sheriff in town, and he wants his money back. That's exactly what's happening. So frankly, I sympathize with those who had a credit score drop, who were upset about it, but you deserved it. You had years to pay it back. You had since October of 2020 to figure out your financial situation and how you're going to pay those loans back and even save money to pay them back. 5 years you've had. And now you're complaining that finally you have to pay them back. Oh my God, I have to pay them back. I have to pay the loan back that I took out. That's all I gotta say about that. You're never convinced me of the student loan thing. I could do a whole hour-long lecture on the student loan situation of the United States. Consider myself somewhat of an expert on, as someone who has student loans myself, and is paying them back actively, by the way. Let's move on to our last story. We actually have two last stories, but they kind of go together. So in the Daily Wire, quote, "We could get involved. Trump leaves door open for U.S. entering Iran-Israel conflict." President Donald Trump told ABC News on Sunday that the United States might not stay on the sidelines if the conflict between Israel and Iran continues or even escalates. Trump spoke with ABC's Rachel Scott about the ongoing hostilities between the two Middle Eastern nations, and he made it clear that while there had been no U.S. involvement thus far, he was not ruling out the possibility that there could be some at some point. ABC News published highlights of the interview on Sunday, noting that Trump had also signaled openness to Russian President Vladimir Putin serving as a mediator in negotiations. When asked whether Iran had been given a deadline regarding when they must be at the table to negotiate, Trump said there was none. Quote, "There's no deadline, but they're talking. They'd like me to make a deal. They're talking. They've continued to talk. Something like this has to happen because I think even from both sides, but something like this has to happen. They want to talk. They will be talking. May have forced a deal to go quicker, actually." Quote, "We're not involved in it," he said on the ongoing conflict, "but it's possible we could get involved. We are not at the moment involved." So, if you don't remember, I covered everything that happened between Israel and Iran a few days ago last week. Essentially, Israel was sitting pretty. I believe Iran shot a missile at Tel Aviv, one of Israel's major cities. Israel shot back a handful of missiles back in Iran. And the rest is history. And now there's a whole major conflict happening between it. There's a war starting up. As if Israel could not have enough conflicts happening between it these days, now they got a second one. So, Donald Trump is taking this very America First perspective and anti-war sentiment during his campaign, during his presidency, even during his first presidency, that we shouldn't be involved in this stuff. And the fact that he's even entertaining the idea that we would at all get involved in this conflict that has nothing to do with America, it's a little startling to see. So, I'm not pointing fingers until things actually happen, but when it comes down to it, in my opinion, you can't be pro-America, America first, and anti-war, and then go and get the United States tied up in another Middle Eastern conflict. We were there for decades after 9/11. We pulled out. It was a terrible move by the Biden administration. So much happened that was wrong. But we pulled out nonetheless. And now we're considering, hey, maybe we should go and fight someone else's battles with them. I don't know. I feel like we've done a lot for Israel recently, and this isn't me being anti-Israel. I have nothing against Israel. Israel's a great country. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. They're constantly being attacked on all sides. But is it really our place to go and begin involved in this now? I have no issue if Israel wants to flip the bill for the United States and pay us for some military equipment or some aerial missions or some drone strikes to be done. But if I hear that we get involved in this and we have service members who lose their lives because of this conflict, because the United States decided to go and stick their nose where it shouldn't, we're going to have an issue. And I don't think you could say after that Donald Trump is an anti-war president if we have U.S. service members' lives on his hands from being involved in this conflict. So I'm against us getting into this, needless to say. I think that there are a few situations in which that we can be involved. Intelligence gathering, like I said, you want to run out a drone strike and Israel's flipping the bill for it. I really don't have an issue with that. But if we're putting our American citizens' lives at risk because of it, we have an issue. And of course, the United States has reasons to not want Iran to be a powerful country. They're working on getting nuclear weapons right now. But I don't know if it's worth going to all-out war over it, right? Just saying. So let's go move on to our last story that kind of coincides with it. So Tim Kaine is back in the news. If you got who Tim Kaine was, he's still a senator, by the way, from Virginia. Tim Kaine ran as Hillary Clinton's vice president all the way back in 2016. And he's still a senator, by the way. He's still around. I haven't heard from Tim Kaine in quite a while, but apparently he stuck his neck out. So, quote, another endless conflict. Democrats echo Trump's anti-war stance as Middle East tensions escalate. A Senate Democrat wants to ensure that Congress can weigh in before the U.S. leaps into another endless conflict in the Middle East, a sentiment shared by President Donald Trump. Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia on Monday introduced a resolution that would require Congress to debate and vote before any U.S. forces used against Iran. Kaine said in a statement that it was, quote, not in our national security interest to get into a war with Iran unless the war is absolutely necessary to defend the United States. What did I just say? Talking about nukes. Oh, here's a picture of the Israel Iron Dome in action against missiles being thrown at in Tel Aviv Friday. Quote, I'm deeply concerned with the recent escalation of hostiles between Israel and Iran. Could quickly pull the United States into another endless conflict. He said, quote, the American people have no interest in sending service members to fight another forever war in the Middle East. Quote, this resolution will ensure that if we decide to place our nation's men and women in uniform into harm's way, we will have to debate and vote on it in Congress, Kaine continued. Trump has painted himself as the consummate anti-war president, vowing during his first term and on the campaign trail during the 2024 election cycle to cease endless wars like those started at the beginning of this century in Afghanistan and Iraq. Can't believe I'm saying that I agree with Tim Kaine here. Those words don't taste good coming out of my mouth, but I agree with Tim Kaine. We should have a debate before we're sending service members' lives into the middle of a conflict that we didn't even start, have nothing to do with. At the very least, right? Like I said, you want to have intelligence sharing, you want to do a drone strike, that's all fine and dandy. But if we're sending service members over there, we better be awfully sure we know what we're getting into. And Congress better also be responsible for it also, right? That's a check and balance in the United States. I'm all for this. I think it's great, right? I'm interested to see what the right-wing mafia is going to start saying about wanting to put a sanction on the Trump administration before we send service members over there. Because on the one hand, you have many members of the right, myself included, who are very anti-war, don't want to have any more conflicts happening, want world peace, right? We don't want to get involved in wars. And we voted for Trump because he said that. But on the other hand, this could potentially be a Democrat going against what Donald Trump wants to do. And what Donald Trump may want to do is send service members over there. So is the right-wing mafia going to suddenly become pro-war just to side with Trump? Or are they going to side with the Democrat? I'm interested to see. Keep you updated on all that. But like I said, I have no issue with this. I think it's fine. I think it's a little bit too little too late, though, to say the least. Where was Tim Kaine where is Tim Kaine's anti-war stance when we started sending all of this aid over to Ukraine? These billions of dollars in aid, a lot of which apparently was lost according to the Pentagon. Where was Tim Kaine when we started sending all this money and aid to Israel to help them out with their war against Hamas? Where was Tim Kaine then? So now all of a sudden Tim Kaine, because Donald Trump is president, is wanting to take a stand? I'm just saying, it seems a bit like a double negative. Now, of course, both in Israel right now and in Ukraine, we don't have service members over there. At least I don't believe we have service members actively fighting. I believe we just sent aid there in the form of money. But still, we're helping to finance a war. They say, oh, we're sending all this humanitarian aid over to Israel. We're sending it over to Ukraine. We're not just we're sending aid, but we're financing a war. That's what's happening. We're financing a war. So where was this anti-war stance from the Democrats when that was happening? Just saying. It's a bit hypocritical. Now, I'm not one to denounce someone's current actions against their past, because I think this is a good thing, right? I take everything as it comes. So I hope that this passes through. But it'll be interesting to see how Republicans act against this, how right-wingers act against this. But yeah, like I said, I support Trump. I hope that he makes the right decision and keeps service members out of it and looks out for our national interests here and protects Americans' lives. But this show has gone on long enough. I've got my rambling out of the way. So with that, I guess we should kind of bring this to a conclusion. If you're not following us all already on all the platforms, Rumble, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, X, all of them. I just hit 10K on X. Thank you very much for you all the support. I appreciate it. Double digits. Love to see it. Share the show with friends. Let people know how great it is. Let people know how great my views and opinions are. I like to bring you stories that are not totally front page news. There's a handful of stories that happened in the day. I could have done an entire show about everything happening in Iran and Israel right now, but everyone's talking about that. So I want to talk about student loans. I want to talk about Purdue Pharma, right? I like to bring you stories that other people don't. So let people know how great this show is. Follow us, let us know how great we're doing, and share with friends. And with that, I will see you back here on Monday for the next episode of Spin Cycle Live. With that, I've been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. Peace out.